Some people can talk about their childhood easily. They remember where they lived, what their parents were like, what school felt like, and which moments shaped them. They can describe specific memories and emotions from early life without much effort. Other people cannot. When they try to think about their childhood, they feel a blank space. They may remember only a few unclear images, isolated moments, or nothing at all. When conversations turn to childhood memories, they feel uncomfortable or disconnected. They may worry that something is wrong with them. They may wonder if they are repressing trauma or if their mind failed to work the way it should. Psychology offers a clear explanation. Not remembering your childhood is common, understandable, and often a sign of adaptation rather than damage. Memory does not work the same way for everyone, and it is shaped by emotional conditions, stress levels, and how safe the brain felt while growing up. Memory is not simply about storing events. Memory is a system that develops to help a person survive. What is remembered and what is forgotten depends on what the brain believed was necessary at the time. Children do not form long-term memories automatically. For a memory to last into adulthood, the brain must have enough emotional safety and mental capacity to organize experiences into a story. This process requires time, reflection, and stability. When a child feels emotionally supported and safe, their brain has the space to record experiences. When a child lives in a state of tension, unpredictability, or emotional pressure, the brain shifts its priorities. Instead of recording memories, it focuses on managing the present moment. This shift is not a failure. It is a survival response. The brain always prioritizes what keeps a person functioning in the present over what preserves the past. Long-term stress has a powerful effect on memory formation. When a child experiences frequent stress, the body produces cortisol. Cortisol interferes with the hippocampus, the brain structure responsible for organizing and storing long-term memory. When cortisol remains elevated for long periods, memory formation becomes inefficient. The brain focuses on scanning the environment, regulating emotions, and maintaining control rather than recording detailed experiences. This is why many adults who do not remember childhood still remember emotional states. They may recall feeling anxious, tense, overwhelmed, or emotionally responsible even if they cannot remember specific events. The experiences were not erased. They were stored differently. One of the most common reasons people do not remember childhood is emotional neglect. Emotional neglect does not mean abuse. It means a child's emotions were not consistently noticed, validated, or responded to. The child may have had food, shelter, and education, but lacked emotional engagement. When emotions are not acknowledged, the brain learns that internal experiences are not important. Over time, the brain stops organizing experiences around emotions, which weakens memory formation. In these environments, nothing dramatic has to happen. There is no single event to remember. There is simply very little emotional material to anchor memory. This creates a childhood that feels empty in hindsight. Many people who do not remember childhood had to grow up early. They may have taken on emotional or practical responsibilities beyond their developmental level. They may have cared for siblings, managed adult emotions, avoided conflict to keep peace, learned to be quiet, helpful, or invisible. These children live in a constant state of responsibility. Their attention is focused on what others need rather than what they feel. Memory requires self-focus. These children did not have the space to reflect on their own experiences. Their brain learned to function without storing personal memories. Memory relies heavily on language. When children are encouraged to talk about their feelings and experiences, the brain learns how to structure memory. If a child is rarely asked how they feel, or if emotional expression is discouraged, memory formation weakens. Experiences are not turned into stories. Without language, experiences remain unorganized and fade more easily. This does not mean the child had no inner life. It means the inner life was not given structure. Some people avoid childhood memories because thinking about them creates discomfort. This avoidance is often unconscious. The brain learns which mental pathways create distress and gradually stops using them. Over time, memories become harder to access. This is not intentional repression. It is learned avoidance. The brain decided that remembering was not useful. Some people can recall factual details about childhood but feel emotionally disconnected from them. They may remember schools, homes, or family members but feel no emotional attachment to those memories. This often happens when emotional expression was discouraged or unsafe. The child learned to separate feelings from experiences. The memory exists, but the emotional component was disconnected. People process memory differently. Neurodivergent individuals may store memory in fragments rather than narratives. This is not a deficit. It is a different way of organizing information. Memory is shaped by culture. In some families, personal storytelling is not emphasized. Childhood experiences may never be discussed or revisited. Memory strengthens through repetition. Experiences that are never revisited fade naturally. Not remembering childhood can create identity confusion. People may feel disconnected from their past or unsure of who they are. However, identity does not require memory to exist. The nervous system still learned from early experiences. Your reactions, preferences, and emotional patterns carry that information. Healing does not require remembering childhood events. Therapy often works with present reactions, emotional responses, and bodily sensations. You can change patterns without accessing memories. Some people begin to access childhood memories later in life as their nervous system becomes calmer and more stable. This often happens when they feel emotionally safe, supported, and less overwhelmed. However, many people never recover specific childhood memories, and this is equally normal. Memory recovery is not a requirement for healing. Psychological growth does not depend on remembering events in detail. It depends on understanding current emotional patterns and learning how to regulate them. The brain does not need to replay the past in order to move forward. Healing occurs through safety, insight, and consistency in the present, not through forced recall of experiences that the brain once protected you from remembering. Forgetting is often misunderstood as a failure of the mind. In reality, it is one of the brain's most effective adaptive tools. When the brain senses that holding on to certain experiences would interfere with daily functioning, it reduces access to those memories. This is not a flaw. It is a protective response designed to maintain stability. Your brain evaluated what it needed most at the time. Instead of preserving detailed recollections, it focused on helping you stay regulated, attentive, and capable of navigating your environment. Remembering was less important than continuing to function. This kind of adaptation often develops in situations where emotional processing is difficult or unsafe. The brain limits recall to prevent overload. Over time, this becomes a default pattern rather than a conscious choice. Forgetting in this context is not avoidance or denial. It is evidence that your nervous system found a way to keep you going when reflection was not possible. People who do not remember their childhood often develop strengths that are easy to overlook. Independence develops because they learned early how to manage life without relying on emotional support or reflection. Emotional awareness develops because they became skilled at reading situations, moods, and signals in the present. Adaptability forms because they learn to adjust quickly to changing environments instead of relying on familiarity. Self-reliance grows because they learned that stability had to come from within. These strengths did not appear by accident. They were shaped by necessity. Functioning became more important than remembering, so the brain organized itself around survival skills rather than memory storage. This is why the right question is not "what is wrong with me?" but "what did my brain need to do to cope?" That question removes shame. Not remembering your childhood does not mean it was empty. It means your brain chose survival over memory. Your past does not need to be remembered to matter. Healing depends on safety, understanding, and compassion, and those can be built now.